Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Lights Out podcast. We're all back together, the four of us, after myself and Callum McAvoy's chat last time. Joshua Fletcher is back, Callum O is back, and of course, Callum McAvoy has returned along with me, Matt Salmons as well. I was thinking to myself the other day, I never actually mentioned what my name is at the start of the video, so just say myself and just assume everybody knows. So I need to start saying that. So yeah, me, Matt Salmons, Josh Fletcher, Callum Owen, and Callum McAvoy. Last time, myself and Callum M down there previewed the Australian Grand Prix. The first time we've been back there for a few years, so we're going to chat about that. We've got no real news to talk about this week, unless anybody else will chip in with some that they've got for themselves. But no real news to chip in with this week. And then we'll talk about Imola. And of course, I've got it written in caps here. Joshua just reminded me before we started, it's the return of the sprint. So we're going to be talking about sprint races, even though we're probably won't have much to say because, I think we have pretty clearly expressed our opinions on the sprint before, but who knows, this year it might be different. But Joshua, I've not seen you for a while. How have you been, and how was getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning for Australia?
Yeah, not bad. Just a lot of deadlines and stuff, so I couldn't be on for a while. But yeah, not much fun. Sort of not missed those early race starts. Quite enjoyed the afternoon, evening ones, but a bit different. And yeah, it was. Well, it was what it was, wasn't it? It wasn't anything spectacular.
Callum Owen, for you, how have you been? Do you enjoy the Australian Grand Prix? Was it better than previous ones?
For an Australian Grand Prix, I thought it was quite good. But I don't know. I feel like the track changes helped, but it's never going to be one of the best races on the calendar. So I think it's at a good level now where everyone can think it's an all right race. It's a good event to have on the calendar more so than it's a good race.
Mm. And I don't know if either of you two listened to the chat me and Callum had before this one. Did you hear the slip up that I made, either of you? Joshua probably did because he edited it.
Remind us all of what it was, Matt.
No. Callum M can. Callum, go for it.
I don't know how you did this, Matt, but you somehow managed to mix up Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez.
I came out all guns blazing for full context for Callum O because I don't think he's listened back to it. But for full context, I came out and was like, and for the first time ever, Carlos Sainz got his first ever pole in F1 in Saudi. How pleased obviously not dramatic. How pleased were you, Callum M? And then he was like, "You mean Sergio Perez?" And it was just, I made a handful of errors during that podcast, but it was good fun. But speaking of predictions, Callum M, let's talk about the ones we made. Both of us said Max Verstappen was going to win the Australian Grand Prix, and he didn't, and it went wrong. And another fuel-related issue, it looks like, for Max.
Yeah, reliability proving to be Red Bull's downfall at this point of the season. A lot of great memes going around of Red Bull saying, "We have all the speed," and Mercedes going, "We have all the reliability," and then Ferrari going, "Somehow we have both." It seems to be the way the season is looking. Yeah, and honestly, even if Max had finished the race, I don't think he was going to challenge for the lead. Charles looking very, very, very good to win this championship. Maybe it's too early to say that. My prediction is looking very good for that. But Ferrari looking unstoppable at the moment.
And tagging onto that, you said that Leclerc would get pole. He obviously did. I went with Max. Joshua, would you say that Ferrari are by far the quickest car on the grid and most reliable this season? And is anyone going to stop them?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious to see at the moment. Red Bull look good at times, but their reliability, Max has 2 DNFs in 3 races. It isn't really title challenging worthy, you wouldn't think. I still think we're potentially 1 or 2 races a bit too early of finalising and formalising sort of where everyone's at. You never know what upgrades Mercedes or Red Bull, or I think that's pretty much about it. Who has a realistic chance of competing, or who would think they do, Imola and Miami. But yeah, I think if you were smart, you'd put your money on Ferrari all the way, and probably Charles to go and win both. But it's still really early. If you still only had 3 races, so let's wait and see on that one. But yeah, I think it's pretty likely it's going to be either one of those two.
I don't think we need to particularly dwell on Charles' very comfortable victory at the weekend. Obviously, the safety car restart was probably the only time it looked like he was under pressure, and he didn't let Max pass as well, even though he had that little wobble on the final corner. Perez came home in second. Callum M was obviously delighted with that, we can all assume. And Russell came home in third. Callum M, I'll come to you, Callum O, but Callum did predict Sainz to come third. Obviously, he retired on the second lap after that crash where he just got too close to the back of an Alfa Romeo. I can't remember if it was Bottas or Zhou. Just went straight across the grass into the gravel, and a bit of a desperate lunge, I think that one was from Carlos trying to make up places. Would you agree, Callum?
Yeah, he had probably his worst weekend as a Ferrari driver. He was on the pace and looking good until Q3 started. He missed that first line lap because of the red flag. The second one had the issue firing up his car and he couldn't get going, couldn't get his tyres warmed up. Ninth, but I think he overdrove the Ferrari. I think if you're going to put that Ferrari on hard tyres, if you're going to put any car on the hard tyres, you won't be going into laps 1 and 2 pushing. You've got to warm the tyres up, and I think Carlos Sainz just did a bit too much, a bit too soon, and that's why he ended up in the gravel. And he's now beginning to look like the number 2 driver that many thought he would be. So he had a fantastic season last year, and he's more than capable of being Ferrari's lead driver, or at least on par with Leclerc. But he really needs a couple of strong results to sort of put a foot forward and make a claim to be equal with Leclerc.
You led me on perfectly to the next point, saying that he's probably Ferrari's number 2 driver now for certainly the foreseeable future, and maybe even for the rest of the season. Do you think, Joshua, that pressure's maybe got to him in Australia, him thinking, right, if this is my last chance to get a decent result, otherwise I'm going to be the number 2 all season? Because the Ferraris have been equal for the last 3 years, because they've been rubbish in terms of the cars. The drivers haven't kind of had that rivalry, whereas now that might be getting to Sainz. Do you think?
I don't know if it's getting to him. I think he's obviously seen how well his teammates done and how well the team are doing, and I think he wants to be there competing for wins. I think he's made no qualms about speaking out and saying no, he wants to be world champion. He wants to fight Charles. And I don't know, obviously seeing your teammate, like you've seen with the Mercedes guys, all the number 2s, probably apart from Rosberg, competing with Hamilton, they've always wanted to beat him and they haven't been able to. And I think we might see a similar thing here, that Sainz wants to go and get those wins and battle, and it's not gone well for him so far in terms of getting those wins against his teammate. But you never know. I think he does want to do well, and I think maybe he overrated it in Melbourne. But I don't know. I think his time will come, but I don't know yet if he's thinking he's going to be the number 2. But I think another couple of wins for Leclerc, and I think that's going to pretty much settle it.
And we'll see our predictions later, but I think you can probably imagine that all 3 of us are putting Leclerc ahead of Sainz in terms of finishing positions at the moment. I mean, we'll find out a bit later on when we talk about Imola, but you're all kind of nodding along there. If we look a bit further back in the field, continuing on the prediction side, my wild prediction, I originally said someone was going to, my initial thought for this was that someone was going to surprise us from somewhere. And I did commit to it. I did commit to a team. I committed to Williams, and I said we'd have a Williams in the top 10. And Callum M, I'll come to you on this one. Alex Albon finished P10. Do you think Alex Albon listened to the podcast?
Oh, absolutely. There's no explanation. He probably could have finished higher as well. They made this kind of got missed initially on TV, but he made like a pit stop on the last lap apparently. I don't know what for, but managed to hand off the points. I admit, when you said that prediction, I was like, okay, that is bold, but I'll allow it. And no, it worked out. Williams do have a bit of pace in that car, not to, I think, challenge for points on the regular, but on certain tracks, I definitely think they can sneak into the points. And Albon's a great driver, as we've seen before. So, good on you, Massa. You're probably winning the predictions table, which is very disappointing for the rest of us, but whatever.
We'll come onto the table once we kind of move on from the end of this part of the pod. But I've certainly it certainly helped and boosted my ego massively as well, because that was quite, as you said, a bold prediction to come out with from kind of nowhere. Joshua, since you're wearing orange up there, we'll come to you for this next one. Callum M's wild prediction was Ricciardo getting his first points of the season, finishing in the top 10. He did that, finished P6. Both McLarens in the points. In fact, are McLaren back?
Oh, I think it's too early to say. They looked a lot better. They definitely looked a lot better. I don't know. Let's wait and see on this one. Let's see how they perform at Imola. I think they've made steps to progress. They've made some changes. It might have worked. They still, Lando especially, still doesn't seem too sure whether it was a bit of good fortune. We had a couple of retirements higher up the grid, whether there's the performance and the changes they've made. So I don't know. Especially, I hope they have. I know we all had them quite high up. Well, I had them quite high up in my predictions. It doesn't seem right not to have them nearer the top. But sort of the same with Mercedes, isn't it? That the performance isn't there necessarily where they wanted it or where it should have been. But let's wait and see that. I don't want to over-egg it and say, yeah, of course they're back. They're going to be competing for podiums again. And they sort of DNF twice. So let's wait and see that one. But hopefully, let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at hopefully.
And I'm sure, like you said, maybe it's a couple of races too early to really tell where they're at. They could be awful again in Imola. Who knows? That could have been a one-off. Who knows? And the same with Haas. I don't want to dwell on Haas really, but obviously they've shown lots of pace in the first two rounds. Then they both cars finish out of the points in Melbourne. Gunther Steiner kind of wasn't really saying much about it. He was saying, yeah, okay, that's fine. We'll probably get back in the points at some point. So again, who knows? That car might not have suited Melbourne. Callum O, I'll come to you for the last point on Australia. And unfortunately, we've got to finish on a negative and a terrible, terrible weekend for Aston Martin, and particularly Sebastian Vettel, his first race back in F1. Obviously, not ever his first race back this season. He's obviously missed the first two with COVID. Just a really bad weekend for him. You've got to feel sorry for him.
Yeah, and I do fear it could start to be the beginning of the end for Sebastian Vettel. See, I think the Aston Martin's not a great car, and it didn't ever look hooked up to Melbourne. I think he had retired in FP1, retired in FP2, crashed in FP3. I think, to be fair, the fact he got a quali lap in, he was never going to get out of Q1 probably anyway with the speed of that car, but just to see him get a lap was good. And he was nowhere. I think that's more of a reflection of the car than it is of him. But I think we also got to remember that it's his first race back since December. He's just got over COVID. He was come back in and shock everyone getting to the points, especially not in Aston. But it was just a shocking weekend all round with them, mostly of Lance Stroll being involved in an incident every other minute. So I don't know. I think it's a long, long road ahead for Aston.
I mean, go back to Vettel. COVID affects everyone in different ways as well. Some people take longer to recover from it, feel fatigue maybe, or maybe aren't as strong or whatever. So that could have been a case for Vettel. And obviously, he's not in the best car in the world. And you've led me on to Stroll as well. Callum M, we'll come to you on this one if that's all good. I've put in the notes here: Stroll an idiot, crashed with Latifi, forced Bottas off. Obviously, the crash with Latifi was in qualifying, and he obviously forced Bottas very wide in the race. I can't remember if he got a penalty or not for that. I probably would have given him one because I hate him. But we'll talk about qualifying first. That crash with Latifi, was it just a mix-up, or was that his fault?
Talk about an agenda against the driver, Matt.
I think I put some tweets out about him as well from our account in Bahrain and Saudi as well. But anyway, I'll leave it with you. That crash in qualifying.
Well, he did. You are correct. He did get penalised for weaving during the race, to which Valtteri Bottas actually said afterwards that's not how you drive in F1. So it was very, very critical of him. In terms of the quali crash, yes, he was to blame for it, and I'm sure he was penalised. I think it was a grid place penalty, although which didn't affect him because he was last anyway. But it was one of those I actually think the marshals had to take some blame for, because they showed blue flags to Latifi when they didn't need to. And then so he gets out of the way, Stroll goes past, is not on a quick lap, and then Latifi's like, well, I want to get back on my lap. So he then starts off, and then Stroll is just getting out of the way of, I think Zhao was coming around the corner, and then just didn't see Latifi. So yeah, it's Stroll's fault for not having the spatial awareness. But I think the marshals did play a part in that incident.
Joshua, anything else to add on that one?
No, I think it's clear to see that sort of Stroll hasn't really had the best of it. Has been quite accident prone, causing a couple of collisions. Latifi isn't himself blameless in a couple of recent times. But I don't know. It wasn't a good weekend at all for Aston Martin, and Stroll made some mistakes. Maybe he's getting a bit too much piled on him, like we saw with Latifi previously. But yeah, it did feel a couple of rookie errors. But I don't know whether that's just team environment. That car is just so toxic and so downbeat at the moment that they can't do anything right, and we're seeing that with their drivers as well.
I'm not going to come to Callum O on Stroll as well, because then I'd have talked to all of you about Lance Stroll, and I've not talked to all of you about any of the other issues we discussed on here. So if Callum wants to chip in with anything he can in his next answer, whatever that's going to be about, but it probably won't be about Lance Stroll. I may now change my wild prediction as well. May do that. Right, anyway, let's talk about the predictions table, because that's what we're all here for. Obviously, Joshua and Callum O, we had no predictions submitted from you. You obviously weren't here last time for various different reasons, but you didn't put anything in the group chat, and I deliberately didn't ask you so that you wouldn't be able to make any points up. You could have put them in yourselves. It's your podcast as well, your responsibility. So yeah, at the moment, the bottom of it is, I'm afraid, Callum Owen with 3 points. Callum M, you got yourself a couple of points at the weekend with some good predictions. I think you got your wild and poll right. You're on 4 points in second, and then myself and Joshua are still tied at the top. I've brought it back up. I think my wild prediction was the only thing I got right. So yeah, me and Joshua on 5 points. It's still nice and close, and obviously plenty of races and predictions left to make, including ones for Imola. The very final thing I want to talk about Australia. This can be really quick because I think it's an easy answer. Callum O, the track improvements. Me and Callum talked about them last week. Good or bad? I assume good for the Grand Prix.
Yeah, good. Needed them. I think there was it was a quicker, more free-flowing track, better action. I think the extra DRS zones helped. So yeah, all in all, good changes.
Cool, good stuff. So I think that's pretty much everything that we need to touch on from Australia. I think we'll all agree that the track changes were needed and were positive. Let's move on to Imola. There's no real news come out of Formula One in the breaks that we had. Obviously, last time me and Callum discussed Las Vegas, it is Las Vegas, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
There has been the Ferrari Haas comparisons in the last couple of hours. If that's really news, apparently there's been some appeals against the Haas car that the FIA are going to investigate.
Well, let's wait and see what the outcome of that is.
I think three teams have appealed it, their performance, and there's been comparisons calling it the white Ferrari, which Gunther didn't really
here we
enjoy.
go again.
Here we go. There's no official news on that, so we'll leave that.
That's just so Netflix could get an episode out of Haas and Ferrari like they did with Racing Point, isn't it? Okay, cool. So let's move on. Speaking of Italian teams and Italian places and just Italy in general, we're going back there at the weekend. We're going back to Imola, unless somebody's going to tell me that we're not going there and I've got the track wrong. We're going to Monza or something. But we're going to Imola as far as I'm aware. We've also got the return of the sprint, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But Callum M, obviously we returned to Imola for the first time. Was it in 2020 or 2021? We've been back there recently anyway. A good track for you. Are you looking forward to this one?
It's very much a driver's track. It takes a lot of skill to drive around there. And two fairly entertaining races in the last 2 years that we've been back, but not a massive one for overtaking. Although last year was helped a lot because it was quite a wet race from what I remember. And I've just looked at the forecast and there is a chance of rain all weekend. So fingers crossed for some rain there.
Interesting. That could also now influence the predictions I'm making as well. I'm just changing them every 5 minutes at the moment. We've got the return of the sprint this weekend, Callum O, where we're going to have qualifying on Friday afternoon, then sprint qualifying, the race on Saturday afternoon, and then obviously the Grand Prix on Sunday. Sprint qualifying will set the grid for that, but you should know that if you're listening anyway and are an F1 fan. We've obviously talked about the sprint before. Are you looking forward to seeing the sprint back, possibly with these newer, better following cars, if that kind of makes sense?
I I'm looking forward to seeing the sprint as opposed to an FP3. I think I'd rather watch a sprint race than a practice session.
Yeah.
Am I looking forward to sprint? No. Do I mind? No. I'd sort of, it's one of them things. I think I'm curious to see if it's better now. There's more points positions because there'll be a bit more to fight for, and it will actually influence the championship as opposed to giving 3 points to the top three. It's pointless. But no, I think it'll be. I don't think Imola's the best choice for it. As Callum said, it's not an overtaking track, so I don't know. We'll see, won't we? I guess. So maybe if they wanted one at the start of the season, Imola probably was your best bet. So I'm happy to be proved wrong. Hopefully it'll be great.
This was something I didn't know. I'm not going to say I forgot about it because I didn't. I just didn't know that there was more points available for positions. Does anyone know what they are?
It's down to 8. I can't remember if it's done 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but I know it's from 1st to 8th.
Joshua, Callum.
I will double check that, but Callum knows what he's talking about. It does sound
Maybe.
right.
Yeah. I was going to say, what if it's like 15? I don't know, like the F2 do it in their sprint races where it's
I don't think it's
15 and 8, 7, something like that.
I don't think it's that high, but I also can't.
Here we go. The driver who takes P1 will now receive a more lucrative 8 points rather than 3, with sliding scale down 1 point for 8th place. Well done, Callum.
Callum knows his stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, that's certainly going to be
prediction table for that.
You're now joint second with Callum.
Sweet.
Yeah, we'll let him have that. Okay, let's get back to business. So the sprint itself, Joshua, Callum mentioned it there. Not the best track to overtake on, but surely we're going to get some better action than we did last year with these new cars.
Yeah, I hope so. And you think so, and you've seen that overtaking has been a lot better. And I know we've had track changes at Melbourne, but we've had a few, like loads more overtakes than we normally get. So hopefully, when we sort of need it for the sprint, it sort of does seem a bit sometimes like parade if you don't get those overtakes. It feels a bit wishy-washy sometimes. So yeah, hopefully we get some improvements. Hopefully that alters the sprint. Hopefully we get a bit of a mixed up starting grid and then some decent hard racing with a lot of overtaking on Sunday. But my worry is that it will end up almost being like a procession, and you'll get your usual suspects up there racing for 2.5 a race, and then we'll get the same thing Sunday. So fingers crossed we get some improvements in overtaking. I'm just tempering my expectations until Saturday, to be honest with you.
And I'm sure this time next week or whenever we next meet up, we'll all be talking about how rubbish the sprint is and how it's just terrible and should be an F1 like we have every other time we've had a sprint. The only thing I can give it is that when I went to Silverstone last year, Friday night qualifying, as the sun was going down, beer in hand was absolutely fantastic. And then we obviously had, the races and stuff on the Saturday. So being at the track and being a fan, I think it's better. But when we're sat, obviously, wherever we're sat watching it on the TV, hundreds of miles away, not so good, I don't think. Let's get straight into our predictions then. We all know our opinions on the sprint. We're obviously going to add in our sprint predictions this week. So we're going to go who's going to be fastest in qualifying, which is how they phrase it now. Then we'll go with our sprint pole sitter, our top 3 for the race, and then a wild card. Callum M, we'll come to you for your qualifying prediction first of all. Who's going to be at the front of the grid for the sprint?
I've gone for the very boring choice of Charles Leclerc. Can't see anyone else topping him at the moment. I thought maybe with Australia being a slightly slower track than Saudi and Bahrain, that maybe another team could be in there. But Charles was just imperious as per usual. So yeah, I'm going to stick with him for this weekend. And of course, Imola, it's in Italy, Tifosi, Ferrari, the rest.
Joshua, for yourself?
I've gone with Max.
Oh.
Let's throw a surprise. Well, he's not really a surprise, but let's throw another name out there. I don't know. I think after some disappointment in the opening 3, I think he'll be really pumped for this one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether the Italy factor will not play on Ferrari's mind, but it's always how do Ferrari do, and there's a lot of pressure on those drivers and ability doesn't always come into it. The occasion and the support for that team is so huge, especially in Italy. I think Max will like to have some fun with that, and let's say he's fastest in qualifying.
Cool. I've gone with Leclerc as well for pretty much the same reasons as Callum M. Don't think I need to dwell on that one too much. Callum O, the same for you, or are you going to make it 2-2 and go with Max?
I'll make it 2-2. I know, well, I don't know, but I've seen a lot of reports that it will rain Friday, and in the rain, I would take Max Verstappen over Charles Leclerc. I think it'll be very equal between the two, but I think it's getting to that point where Red Bull know they've got to start winning races, because these two retirements have cost them on Max's car. So I think Max to take pole on Friday.
I think the main thing that to come out of this is that none of us have seen these cars in the rain. I know in Barcelona, I think they sent a load of like massive trucks around to just lay water down on the track. But I think within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe the track was dry again. So only the teams know what these cars are like in the rain. And that was kind of a simulation of the rain. It wasn't, accurate, how heavy it is and stuff like that. You couldn't work that out in Barcelona. So if we do get some rain, I think that would only make it an even better weekend. So 2 Leclercs, 2 Maxes. Let's talk about who is going to go on and win the sprint race. Joshua, we'll come back to you again.
I've got Charles Leclerc to win the sprint. I mean, not that we're doing it. I've got Max and Sainz for 1, 2, 3. But I think that when we go proper racing, I think Charles is levels above anyone else at the moment. So I'd be shocked if it's anyone but him.
I'm going to join you again because it could be an even split down the middle, but I've also gone with Leclerc to take sprint pole. Maybe this is just me trying to stay at the top of the predictions table with Joshua. Callum M, let's go to you.
I feel like I should pick someone different now, but I also went Charles as well. Yeah.
And Callum O?
See, now I feel like I should pick someone different. I don't know how much I want to win.
You're bottom. You need the points.
I don't know. It depends how much I want to win the predictions. Yeah, Charles Leclerc. I think I don't know. Yeah, well, he's going to win with points. Actually, no, not Charles Leclerc. I need points to beat you. Perez. Perez is doing it. Yeah, he's doing it.
Oh, the reverse psychology there. Very nice.
Coming.
Yeah. I mean, the 4 of us have never met up in person. I was just thinking we could put something on the predictions table. Whoever loses has to buy the other 3 a pint or something like that. But when we're actually going to find the time for that to ever happen, with us living in 4 different places of the country, I don't know. Maybe you send them one on Just Eat or something, and we'll record the podcast doing it. Who knows? Anyway, speaking of good ideas, Callum came up with one last week. I know the 2 of you weren't around, but he said about doing our dream F1 calendar, which is something we're definitely going to have to schedule in for the summer break. But I'm getting distracted. I need to stop doing that. I'm going to go back to the top 3. I have gone with Leclerc, then Max, then Sergio Perez. Again, Joshua, will come back to you.
For the race, I've gone Leclerc, Sainz, Perez.
Nice. Bit of not revenge, but Sainz kind of back on form again. I don't know how to phrase that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he'll be up for it after that disappointment in Melbourne, and yeah, it want to prove himself. And I think Ferrari 1-2 at their home race in Italy, closely behind them, it sort of feels right, especially with the way the season's going. It sort of feels everything's lining up for that.
Callum O, down to you.
I'm going to go with Carlos Sainz in 3rd, Charles Leclerc in 2nd, and Max Verstappen in 1st.
Oh, nice. And Callum M?
I'm gambling on there being rain, which is the great equalizer in motorsport, as we know. Max Verstappen is going to win, then Leclerc, and then Lewis Hamilton 3rd. Why not? He's good in the rain.
Nice. That was the other thing I forgot to mention about my Australian predictions. I put Hamilton 3rd and Russell finished 3rd, which was slightly annoying. But anyway, yeah, so I've gone with Leclerc, Max and Perez. I think I've already said that, haven't I? So let's get to the wild prediction. We've obviously talked about the fact there's going to be a little bit of rain this weekend. Callum, we won't leave you till last this time. We'll come to you first. Your wild prediction for the weekend.
Between about 3. Mick Schumacher to score points. First F1 points at one of his dad's most famous circuits.
That would be a perfect story, wouldn't it? Callum M, let's come to you.
You're going to have to come back to me because my initial one was Vettel to score points, and then the more we talked about Martin through the podcast, I was like, no, this isn't good.
You're
and
like me,
thought,
putting
okay,
him in fifth last season.
Exactly, and then I thought, okay, I'll put Mick Schumacher to get points. Now Callum Owen's taking that, so give me 2 minutes. I'll think of something else to put in.
Okay, well, I've gone with two teammates that have been fine so far, but I think this is going to be the weekend where something's going to happen between them, and I've gone for the Mercedes pair. Another bold one, but whether it's the sprint or in the race, I think something's going to happen between those two. I don't think George is going to back away from a bit of tension. Lewis will obviously, probably keep himself calm like he did last year, and we'll probably see the same kind of reaction from him as last year, where we'll just kind of back away from it. But something's going to happen between those two Mercedes cars this weekend. They're not going to be fighting for the win. They're going to be fighting for fifth or something like that, and something's going to happen, especially maybe in the rain. George could make a mistake. Lewis could. He obviously made a mistake last year in Imola in the rain, where he went off into the gravel and still managed to recover it. But yeah, I'm going for a Mercedes collision. Who haven't I come to yet? Joshua?
Yes, my race predictions may have alluded to this. I think there will be a crash between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, and Max will come off worse. I'm not saying he'll DNF again. I'm saying there will be a crash, and I think that will mean that Max doesn't score a podium. But let's go for a crash between Verstappen and Leclerc.
Another Max retirement. I mean, we saw a bit of Hamilton and Verstappen. It was round 2 of Hamilton versus Verstappen in Imola last year, wasn't it? When they both went into turn 1, and I think was it Hamilton that went over the curb in the end, where the two of them kind of almost came together there. Callum M, have you made your mind up yet?
Yes, I have. I'll say you'll be the judge if this is wild enough. Pierre Gasly to finish in the top 5.
Oh,
I'll give you that.
like it. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. I like it. That could be good. Maybe we'll have to think about the way the points work, depending on boldness. Maybe give more points for more bold predictions. If you say like Alfa Romeo are going to win the championship or something, you should get like 100 points if it's right. Yeah, that's a fairly bold prediction. Another Italian-based team in Italy. With AlphaTauri. So yeah, you never know. Well, that's going to be it from us. Thank you very much to everybody who's listened. Thank you to the three of you, Joshua, Callum and Callum. We'll be back for whatever the next race is. I've no idea what it is. Is it
Miami.
Barcelona next?
Miami.
Oh, Miami. Oh, yay. Can't wait. Another street track. But we'll save that one for next time. So yeah, thank you to the three of you for joining us. Thank you to everybody who's listened. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. We've got some great interaction with a tweet Josh put out the other day, I think it was, where he replied to an F1 account, and plenty of people liked it. But I think about 2 people followed us.
We didn't get a massive follow again, but we got about 100 likes.
Yeah, so we'll take that. Little wins. But yeah, thank you to the three of you. Thank you to everyone listening, and thank you to everyone that's following us on the various social media channels. We'll be back next time for Miami. Enjoy the sprint this weekend, and we will see you all later. Bye-bye.
All right.